So the Zoom is recorded. We
Okay.
have the video recorded so that the French trackers can watch it later.
Great.
And I want to thank you and to take some time for us to say hello to the French trackers and to tell a little bit about your story and sharing a little bit of inspiration on tracking. I think for us it's a very valuable testimony because it seems like we French trackers are just reaching the tracking community right now, and we just discovered that there is a big tracking community all over the world, and that's really nice. My friend Francis, with whom I made the French Tracker Association, just came back from Namibia, and he went to meet sand trackers, and so it seems like the French tracking community is beginning to reach trackers all over the world now, and that's really nice to feel that there is a kind of passport through tracking. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I can just make a quick introduction of who you are.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're an evaluator in CyberTracker system. You're evaluating track and sign evaluations, also trailing evaluations, and you're external evaluator in both. So I think
Just in trailing.
Oh, just in trailing.
Yeah.
So it means you have to travel in foreign countries to sign up new evaluators, if I'm right.
Well, the external evaluator, there needs to be an external evaluator present for specialist evaluations. So I just got certified to be an external evaluator last year, but I was traveling to Europe starting maybe in 2015. So I would just come as an evaluator and do standard trailing evaluations and track and sign evaluations as a regular evaluator. Yeah. So, but now, there are European evaluators.
Yeah.
So they do the standard evaluations, and it's only necessary for me to be there or for an external evaluator to be there for the specialist evaluations. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe to sign up Jörn as well in Slovakia.
As a regular evaluator, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I just want to add that you're also author of 2 books that we can find online, Trailing Wildlife Beginning and Intermediate Trailing Wildlife. So one of this one, in fact, was the one I was talking with you about, the introduction, when you tell the story of your beginning as a tracker with George Leoniak, and that you were tracking together. And at some point when George Leoniak became a professional tracker, he started to say, I just went for a walk, instead of saying I went tracking. So it wasn't to hide you something, but more than something shifted in his mind. And this is a sentence from you that I use a lot after my workshops, my tracking workshops, when I send an email to the participants to tell them that it's very simple. You just have to go for a walk. I really like this, and so yeah, it's great information and great inspiration.
Yeah.
And reason why I wanted to interview you is to know how it works in US, because in US CyberTracker is known for a much longer time than in Europe, and so maybe it has more applications, and now maybe you can actually work with the certifications if you have a CyberTracker level 4 or specialized. Does it gives you a job? Can you?
Well, the CyberTracker evaluation gives me work as an evaluator. I think the certification is increasingly used for researchers to get work, you know, as field technicians. It is something that people at level 3, for example, are starting to use on resumes.
What?
So on a resume. So when I'm applying for a job, or a CV, I think in Europe you guys might call it a CV. In the States we call them resumes. And so increasingly the CyberTracker certification has value on a CV. So when someone is going for a job as a wildlife researcher, it can help to have that certification on there. And I have not heard from anyone that they need to get professional certification in order for that really to have meaning on a CV. I know level 3 trackers, that's valuable. But increasingly, see, the bottom line is that we are more building the professional relationships in the States where a CyberTracker certification would have value. Profession is building. In South Africa, the profession is there. When they started doing the certifications, they had professional value. But in the States, it's really still more that people are interested in tracking, and so that's why they do these certifications as trainings and as certifications. But anyway, we're building the professional community kind of from the ground up.
Yeah. For how long have you building it, you'd say?
Well, the certification started in North America 20 years ago, in 2004. And I would say that I started hearing that people were using them, the certifications on their CVs maybe 5 years ago. Maybe that's not correct, but it's quite a process to gain recognition in the research community for the value of the certifications. And I think my guess is that it will be quicker in Europe to get that recognition, because getting it anywhere outside South Africa will help to build momentum toward professional value. If that makes sense. So yeah, it's taking a little while. But the other thing too is that the organization in North America, which is called Tracker Certification North America, or TCNA, TCNA has really built a lot of momentum in the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of organizational momentum. And my sense is that professional recognition is now going to start to build at a much greater pace than previously. Yeah,
it's exponential, we could say.
Yes.
Right. And what's your goal in running evaluations and making more and more high-level trackers around you? Because I don't think you work as a biologist or something like that. So what's your vision into building it? What's your goal?
My personal goal?
Yeah.
I mean, the personal goal is really wrapped up with the goal of the organization. TCN being TCNA and also CyberTracker. Yeah, it's the goal. So the mission of CyberTracker conservation in South Africa has been and still is to create a worldwide environmental monitoring network. And the certifications serve that purpose by communicating to the network the quality of the tracker. The network, a worldwide environmental monitoring network, will only be as good as the people who gather data for it. And so the certifications are to ensure the quality of the data for the network. The idea is that as the environment changes, we need to pay more attention to it, and paying attention to it, that's the job of the network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's the mission of CyberTracker Conservation, which is the international organization that was born in South Africa. The mission of Tracker Certification North America is a little different. We serve the CyberTracker vision, but our mission, because we don't have the professional network that is present yet in South Africa, our mission is really to rediscover and preserve and advance the skill of wildlife trackers in North America. So it's to rediscover whatever knowledge was present here before we were colonized.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, that's my way of thinking about that. And then to sort of rediscover it, and then to train folks through the certifications, and then to advance tracking. So the generation of trackers that's coming up behind me are going to be better than I am. So the advancement of tracking is really, it's really exciting. So anyway, I tell you all that stuff because those are the organizational goals. And for me personally, my relationship to the organizations is really compelling. I have conversations with my colleagues, whether in North America or in South Africa, which for me are very exciting. And I carry those conversations into my work in the field as a tracker. They're organizational. I mean, I'll sit down and do a lot of emails and work with the marketing team and work with the professional development team, whatever, spend a lot of time on Zoom calls or whatever to advance the work of the organization. And that's very exciting for me. But my work as a tracker, it all happens outdoors. So if you ask me my professional, my personal goals, I have to say I have personal goals that are related to the organization. But what I've found for myself personally is that if I'm going to have mental health, I have to be outdoors. I have to get away from this computer screen and just go outside. And I can have mental health by working in my garden, or I can have it by going out and playing ball with my son, or I can go out and have it by tracking, or I just have to get outdoors. And that's really become clear for me just in the last few years. And it's become clear for me through tracking, in part, because when I follow a trail, this is an experience I have as a tracker on trails. I've had an experience following wildlife trails where I just feel like okay, I function. I work like a flashlight works. I work. This unit functions, because if I'm just doing my day job or living in New York City, as we did for many years or whatever, I was always uncertain about that. But I started a few years ago to have this experience as a tracker on trails where I was like, oh, I work. It's really like, what is it in this movie, The Great Dance? There is this line that one of the traditional trackers says, which is, tracking is what we were born to do. And I can hear that as a line in a movie. I thought it was pretty cool when I heard it 20 years ago. And I believed it. But following trails now, I have actually started to have that experience. This is where I work best. This is where I function. This is where my flashlight is on. And when I watch trackers on trails, when I watched you work that trail in the Lausitz in the eastern part of Germany, I was like, yeah, this unit functions.
Yeah.
I get astonished when I watch people work wildlife trails. It's very exciting. It's very exciting for me.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because you just put a light on exactly what I feel like. There is a big emphasis in CyberTracker on science. And in fact, maybe science is more related on the track and sign part. And there is also a big part of cultural renewal, roots, human roots. And this is in trailing, I mean. And so these are both together in a CyberTracker. We tend to see only the scientific part, but there is also this very, I don't know, natural human thing in trailing. Yeah, and that's why I wanted to talk with you, because I think you really reach both when we talked together in Germany. I understood that you make a synthesis between the technical tracker and the inspirational tracker, and so that's exactly what you just described. Yeah. You tell that you are saving a skill that was in your country before colonization, and I think we can all relate to that, because we can track our colonization more or less. Long ago in Europe, our colonization was 10,000 years ago, when Magdalenians stopped being hunter-gatherers and started agriculture. But in fact, it's the same on every continent. We share those roots and those needs as a flashlight to function, and so I think it's magical to reach that through trailing. Yeah.
So that experience that I described as a tracker on trails, it does also happen for trackers doing track and sign identification. It happened first for me on trails before track and sign identification. So I don't want to imply that it happens more on one side or the other. In South Africa, they don't, where they pioneered the certifications, they don't really separate trailing from track and sign the way we do in our minds. It's really one thing to them. They're two separate certifications, but it's easier for us outside of that place. It's easier for us here to kind of separate them a little bit, and they're really together. And some of the evaluators are better able than I am to articulate them as being together. But for example, in track and sign ID, Casey McFarland is great at describing how he'll see sign on a riverbank, for example, of whoever, a raccoon, or it might be a cougar, or whoever, and he'll immediately start to imagine where, based on his experience doing track and sign, where he's going to find other sign of that animal on the landscape. If he wants to find a cougar scrape, or if he wants to find raccoon scat, or if he wants to find more sign of this animal that he's looking at right here, where does he look next? And that also applies to us as tracker on trails, but that he's just coming at it from the perspective of a tracker who's looking for sign, right? So that same experience of, wow, I really, my flashlight is on, it can come to you on the track and sign side of things as well.
Yeah, I don't want to discard track and sign by any means. And I've seen as well René Nota. I've seen him building stories with track and sign, and it was awesome. An abandoned shed, and you have eaten eggs, and you have pine martens scrape on the wood, and you can build all a story with tracks and signs, and that's great. Yeah.
That's really, in a lot of ways, what it is we're doing as trackers. We're developing a story. So whether you're on trails or whether you're doing track and sign, it's really like, what's the story that I'm interpreting? I'm constantly revising the story that I have based on the new evidence that I'm seeing. And so it's very exciting. Trackers who are, I mean, I was just with a tracker recently who found a dig about this big, and which is an unusual size because it's too big to be what we might think of as a ground squirrel or whatever, and it's too small to be a red fox den. It's in this kind of weird intermediate size where you've really got to figure out, what is this for? And she stuck her arm into the dig and started to feel around for what it might be for. And she found a tunnel in there, which she thought might be about this big, which here where I am is a chipmunk. It's a good size for a chipmunk tunnel. It's a small ground squirrel, right?
Yeah.
And based on the reason and all that, it was really like she arrived at this idea, the story, that this was a red fox digging for a chipmunk. Mm. And why not a bear? Well, the roots that this animal had gone through in digging, some of them were small enough that if a black bear had stuck its paw in there with its big claws and its big paw, it just would have ripped those fine roots out.
Yeah.
So, you know, so in those ways, there are just finer and finer details that go into reading what this story is. And that's really when track and sign identification to me also just becomes super exciting. It's, what's the story? I'm discovering a story for the first time.
Yeah, yeah. And we are supposed to pay attention to track and sign as well when we trail, because you're
absolutely
to tell to the evaluator what you see and to relate the animal you're following with the landscape and the other animals. So yeah, it completely goes together. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you advise for French trackers to begin to raise their level up and to work their skills?
So the best thing to do is to make a practice for yourself as much as possible. It's just like playing a musical instrument. doing a martial art or being a dancer or anything that, or being a gardener. I mean, anything that we're going to do on a regular basis becomes much more enriching for us personally if we give ourselves time, regular time, as much as possible to do it. And that time can be 20 minutes a day. It can be, you know, there was a long time when I was practicing trailing where my practice was just a half an hour a day, 4 days a week. That was what I could do. And I want to do more. I wanted to do more. I was frustrated that I couldn't do more. And the truth is that, so the frustration is part of it. Anything that we're going to practice, right? We have to understand, sorry, my telephone is ringing. We have to understand that it's going to be frustrating.
Yeah.
So we have to allow for the frustration. This is in part where it's really helpful for us to have people that we're in contact with on a regular basis who can give us feedback on their experiences of their practice. And we can say, oh, you're frustrated too. And we can compare notes, or we can tell the story too, that we can get excited about it. It's really like, and I've been listening recently to John Young again, because I worked with John for 4 years at the beginning of my whole journey on tracking. And it was and what I learned from him was super inspirational. So, you know, I can refer folks to him if they want, or not necessary, but I was listening to him again recently talk about the value of telling the story. And so, you know, when we have a practice, it really is helpful to discuss with other people what our experiences are. It's really valuable for us to tell the story of what it is that we found or what it is that we're doing. And so that's really a second thing. That's really a sort of complement to the practice. I can go out and practice trailing for half an hour a day, 4 days a week, and come in and not tell anybody about it. But I really do grow more quickly as a tracker if I put together the practice with a regular interaction with other people that relates to.
I think I read on your website that you started following the Kamana program and
yes.
journaling your finds. I think I see what you can do when you want to practice trailing. You can go and you try to follow a trail for as long as possible. But I think for track and sign, journaling can be really useful. I'd say it's more difficult to work your track and sign alone and go into the forest, and you don't even know what you're searching for, and where there is a track, where there is a sign, and where to find the information. So,
yes. So there are online resources that are available for anybody who's doing, well, especially doing track and sign. There's an online website, iNaturalist. And I'm just assuming that this is available, that folks are using this in France. But it's a great peer-to-peer mentoring tool, as well as learning from people who are teachers. I've posted stuff on iNaturalist, like I put a picture up of a dragonfly wing. The dragonflies were just hatching, and I found this wing of a dragonfly on a riverbank, and it made a beautiful picture. And I just, so I posted it up to iNaturalist, and within 18 hours, I had a message back on that picture from an entomologist, a professional insect expert, who was telling me that the way that that particular dragonfly wing had a shine, the way the light reflected on it, he said, not only is it a dragonfly wing, but that dragonfly has hatched within the last 36 hours. So to get up on iNaturalist, you know, you want to take a picture and you want to have a scale in the picture, and it can be helpful to have pictures of the environment of the place where you found the thing. And so there is a sort of form and technique to use when you're posting things online, whether it's on a Facebook group or on iNaturalist, so that people can have all the information that they need. But then you're getting feedback from other trackers about the sign that you're looking for, so that you learn, what do I need to look for in order to get better, in order to be quicker in recognizing what it is that I'm looking at. So there's a lot that's available online, iNaturalist and Facebook groups, and maybe they're doing stuff with, geez, I can't remember all the social media stuff anymore. Yeah. There's a lot that's available.
We have now a great WhatsApp group in Europe, yeah, and with great trackers. So there are a lot of exchanges as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And that becomes part of the practice.
Yeah. Yes. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I remember you started at the tracker school. You went at the tracker school as well.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So we did approximately the same trip.
Yeah. Yes, we did. We did. I read Tom's books, and I went and did 4 classes at the tracker school, all in about 6 months. And John was there. John Young was there when I did that, and so I built a relationship with him and Kamana Wilderness Awareness School, and that beginning there at the tracker school, and it proceeded from there. Yeah.
So you did the standard, the advanced?
Yeah, I did the standard and what they call the back-to-back. I can't remember. There was an advanced tracking and an advanced survival.
Okay.
And then I did a 4th class, which might have been I think it was a philosophy class.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I think almost every tracker I meet started with survival or bushcraft, and then they went to tracking. They summarized everything into tracking.
Yes.
Yeah. Even Mark Elbrock, I think he wrote a book on survival. I think I've seen something like that. Yeah.
It's possible. I'm not, he published a bunch of stuff before he produced those track and sign field guides that now we're more familiar with.
Yeah. It's funny. I like the way John Ryder puts it, because he runs this big woodcraft school, and there is an interview of him, a video, and he tells that you can learn pretty quickly how to have clean water, how to boil water, how to start a fire, and how to make a shelter. But the real learning starts when you start to understand how everything works together, how every animal is intricate with the landscapes, and that's when the lifelong learning starts. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. And he's great too.
Yeah, because for some people it can also look like it's too big to know, too many things to know. You will never know every track and sign, but it's also the exciting part of it, that the game is never over. You always have more to discover, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. There's a lot that we have to muscle through. There's a lot that we have to persist. Persistence is really a key element here, because there are a lot of times where in my practice, I just feel like I'm getting worse. And I think that's true for anybody in any practice, right? If I pick up a violin and start to learn, or if I pick up a violin and start to learn the violin, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm practicing those scales or whatever. Maybe I learn a couple of basic songs or whatever. But there comes a moment where the more I know, the more I don't know. The more I know that I don't know, and the more I experience that, that's when I start to feel like I'm just getting worse at this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just becoming more aware of how I'm just a beginner at this.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I think that's a long phase in the learning journey. There's a long phase of feeling frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to persist. That's when we're learning the most. So I look back on this period in my own learning. It happened most with trailing for me. I was so frustrated, feeling like I'm going to go to my next evaluation and I'm just going to look so stupid. I'm just getting worse. And what happened was that through all that experience of feeling bad, I was actually making my most improvement.
Mm. Yeah, that's a humbling process, right? Yeah. Yeah, I remember what you said in your presentation on Tracker Thursday, and also on the ITS, the International Tracking Symposium. You made a presentation on trailing and seeing the animal in the landscape, and you tell the story of a trail. You're following a doe with a young, and at some point she makes a hook. And then you arrive at this hook and you realize that it's the perfect spot to see you pass on her trail. And so this story is amazing. I really liked it, and your conclusion is even more amazing. I really liked it when you're telling. I write it to be sure. Yeah, you say you even if you spend the rest of your days trailing, you will need to have the shared experience of previous trackers to be better, because you can only have the lifelong experience, but with the experience shared by other, you have generations of experience. So and you're talking about this doe who is teaching her young and has been taught by her mother as well. And you say this long line of those behind those, mentors behind mentors, trackers behind trackers. And it's a long line back in time, before people kept time, and before there was any treasure that was more valuable than experience. I really, really, really love it. That's great. Just wanted to share that because maybe some people in France didn't hear this presentation, and I would like them to go and hear it. And yeah, I almost cried when I heard you telling this story and making the parallel between the animal and between the story of the trackers in your country, of Mark Elbrock and his grandfather, of Brian McConnell and his grandfather as well. And yeah, so it's to me it summarizes how tracking is a cultural renewal. I don't know if I say it right. What would be your words on it?
It's a cultural renewal. It does connect us to ourselves. So that brings me back to what we were discussing earlier about we're on a trail and suddenly we feel like, wow, this is what I was born to do.
Yeah.
And that is an experience that I have increasingly as I track, is that I'm not a good tracker because I'm not bad as a tracker, and certainly the practice that I've done as a tracker has gone a long way toward helping me to be a fairly okay tracker.
Yeah.
So it does require practice. But most of the reason why we're good trackers is because we were born human. Humans evolved to be really good trackers. That's how we evolved. For the same reason that the deer evolved to get away from us, we evolved to be able to pursue them. And the more time I spend tracking, the more I wake up to the idea that I'm just doing what I was born to do. And my ability as a tracker, 99% of it came into my body by virtue of the fact that I was born of a woman. That's all. That's it. And so when I connect to myself as a tracker, I connect to the prey as a tracker. I connect to the landscape as a tracker. I connect to you as a tracker. I connect to the story. I connect to the story I want to tell. I connect to the stories that I value. Hearing trackers tell stories, hearing people tell stories. Being born a person means that we tell stories. That's what we do. We tell each other stories. And so when I go onto the landscape as a tracker in a group of people that are tracking, and what we're doing is we're moving silently over the landscape in order to arrive at a place where we can see the animal whose trail we're following, we're doing what people have done from the beginning. We're doing what we were born to do. So all of these experiences that I have as a tracker, whether I'm out in the field or whether I'm on a Zoom with Thomas or whether I'm by a campfire, they're all just, I'm discovering what it is to actually be a person.
Yeah. I completely share your opinion on that, and I love it. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you tell it really well. René told me that you trained as an actor before being a tracker.
Yeah.
So it might be why you are such a good storyteller. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it helps for sure. And yeah, so I don't want to take more of your time. We both have things to do. But yeah, I really thank you for taking this time to chat with the froggies on the other side of the pond. And I hope that we might see you in Europe again. I don't know when, but for the next specialist evaluation.
Yeah, what's going on there is very exciting to me. So I look forward to being there with you again.
Yeah, cool. I hope next time you can make a stop in France. You will be very welcome to make a stop and drink a glass of wine with us.
I would love it. Yeah, I look forward to it. It'll happen sometime.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for your dose of inspiration. It's great, Nate. And I think we will have many motivated trackers on trails next week.
Excellent. Thank you, Thomas.
See you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.